Hello everyone and welcome again to Go Ahead, Play My Game, the podcast where I try to convince Michael to play a game that I know he hasn't played and he tries to convince me to play a game that he knows I haven't played.
Yep.
So, generally speaking, Michael tries to get me to play a really popular game because, I'm really weird that
Not
way.
this time.
And, and generally speaking, I tried to get him to play a really obscure game that no one's ever heard of that's only playable on a fridge from Poland. So, So tell me, Michael.
That was the best console, those Polish fridges.
Yeah, man. I mean, Fallout 76 is going to be so good on those. It's going to be great. So tell me, Michael, what is your game for me this week? What should I play? What should I play next?
Okay, so my pick for you, which I know you haven't played, is a little game called Kentucky Route Zero.
Oh, damn, I really want to play that game. Okay, yeah.
Well, this was an easy one.
You worked out well. Okay, so argument done. See you next time, guys.
Play the outro team song. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, like it's a pretty low-key game. I'm not sure if it's sold incredibly well, but I've seen people write about it a lot and fans love it. But whoever hasn't heard of Kentucky Route Zero, it's best described as a quasi point-and-click game, very much in the loosest sense of the term. It was developed and published by Cardboard Computer, partially funded by Kickstarter, which is a bit unusual because most of the time we hear disasters coming out of Kickstarter games, half-finished games, and shit that doesn't go anywhere.
Call of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. That famous Call of Duty Kickstarter. So the first act came out in 2013. The whole thing is divided into 5 acts, and the last one is going to come out this year.
It's still not finished.
Still not finished.
It came out in 2013.
The first act came out in 2013.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what are they? And then I was going to say a band that doesn't release albums for a really long time, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So could you finish that joke for me?
No, I changed the analogy to if it was an author, it would be George R. R. Martin.
There you go. Yeah.
But we have a release date for the last one, at least. So it's coming out this year.
Class, okay.
I almost like that fact. Just this is a bit of a tangent. I almost like the fact that there's a little bit of a wait because they usually give a release date a couple of weeks beforehand, and it's sort of exciting, and it gives them time to it's not like the game really changes that much between each iteration, but it's so lovingly crafted that you can tell time went into each one.
I suppose if you're really, really into the story, you would genuinely be getting really excited. It's like, as you said, George R. R. Martin, it would be you get properly riled up when you hear that's coming out.
You're invested, and it's weird. Just to bring it all back, it's a quasi point and click game. It's very low on the gameplay side of things is the one thing I'd say, but in terms of its appearance and its mood, it's sort of unlike anything I've ever played or watched or read before. Okay. It's very, very, very atmospheric in capital letters. Sort of a Southern Gothic meets weird time travel-y other dimension, but also it's very about boring bureaucracy and really using all these fantastical elements to tell a story about real ordinary people.
You're losing me a little bit here now.
Yeah.
It sounds like a bizarre eclectic mix. I'm kind of getting sort of a Twin Vibes sort of peak off this.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
That's actually a point I was going to bring up, is that its closest relation that I can think in media at all is David Lynch. It's got a dream-like vibe to it. You're going through this land, ostensibly you're meant to be delivering a package to somebody on Kentucky Route Zero, but in reality you're just going through this land of, I don't know, weird shit and meeting people and having conversations. So in gameplay terms, it's the most you're going to be doing is moving around and talking to people and making choices within those conversations.
Right, okay.
But those choices aren't like a BioWare or a Telltale-esque sort of, a linear or a binary good or bad, or do I chop this guy's leg off or do I not chop this guy's leg off sort of thing. It's more like, what way do you want this conversation to progress? What do you ask? You meet someone and you're like, what question do I ask him,
Okay, so it's like not a case where you can go back and ask people, like do the exact same conversation and ask different things. Once you have a conversation, like it's like a real conversation. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, that'd be a good way to like. It's more. It's a pretty accurate representation of a reflection of real conversations. In that, like sometimes they meander, sometimes people are withholding with information, and it's not like there's a win state. Like I'm pretty sure it's impossible to die during the game.
Okay.
But it's more about. This is cliched, but it's more about the journey itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's meeting people and seeing these amazing sights.
So in a nutshell, right now, not in a nutshell, but would I be right in thinking if it's divided into 5 acts, would each act be, if you're traveling down Kentucky Route Zero, would every act be like, we've stopped here, like I've run out of gas for scene 2, or scene 3 we have to make a detour and stop here? Like is every scene or every act like a stop along the way, or?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Like, to be honest, again, going back to the Lynch thing, even your destination isn't that clear. Like, why you're going there, where you're going. Like, it's not like it has a win state where there's like this end boss that we have to defeat or something like that. It's more you're traveling around with a load of lost people and you're picking up people along the way and meeting other new people in locations. You see, it's hard to talk about specifics because
you don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I noticed from some of the other the previous episodes of this podcast, maybe I got a bit too specific on some things, and really this game is the surprises it throws up and the inventiveness of things. Like its look is amazing. It's not like anything I've ever seen. It's sort of,
why is that?
it's weirdly like it's animated sort of look, but it's very minimal. Like as in, if there's a chair, it'll literally just be like the legs of it would be 4 lines. Like it's like wire work almost.
Is it kind of pixelated?
To a certain extent, but it hasn't got a retro throwbacky feel. Well, not for I've played anyway.
I'm gonna need to look up pictures of this now because it's hard to register what you're talking about.
I know,
like,
yeah.
Because if you say like, you know, it's just a line, but it's like not, it's pixelated but not retro, that doesn't compute at all.
Well,
all your base does not belong to us.
Rather than saying pixelated, I'd say just minimal. So a guy's face just could be a yellow square, but it's done in a very stylized way that's very interesting. And the framing of some of the shots, because it's a point and click game, it doesn't have to worry about a player controlled camera in any capacity. So they can do some excellent framing, and some of the best moments are just like, you know, the headlights from your truck at night going through the branches of a tree and casting an interesting shadow. You know, things like that. Like it's just very arty.
Eh? Oh, we all know
words.
how video games are art. We've had many a conversation about that sort of thing.
But what's great about it is an experience like you'd never have in any other video game. Now, for some people that would frustrate, and I know this sort of game, the pace and mood of it would be in parallel to what's known as walking simulators.
Okay.
And for some people that they want to get in, they want to shoot shit, they want to jump around, and I can understand that. Like that's great. Like fucking Titanfall 2 was the last game I recommended on this, but for a different sort of experience and for something that's, I don't know, a little more challenging in different ways, not necessarily in a gameplay sort of way, this is like nothing else that's ever been released.
Is it very emotional?
It can be, not in a, you know, the end of Walking Dead season 1.
See, I'm glad you brought that up because that is the closest comparison that I'm getting from what you're talking about when you're saying like there's no win state and like it's all about the journey and all that. It sounds a lot like The Walking Dead.
It's in some, on paper possibly, but they're fundamentally different experiences just because there isn't that sort of very present threat of zombies around the corner the whole time in The Walking Dead. There's nothing really to hurt you or kill you in this. Like there's some strange shit that you'll meet, but most of the time you're having a conversation with that strange shit.
Have you played the game Oxenfree by any chance?
No, is that the one it has like a really interesting conversation tree sort of thing?
Yeah, it sounds like I've seen people playing. I think I've played it for about 2 minutes before I had to go to mass or something like that, or you know, whatever.
Hey, that doesn't sound like you.
So throw eggs. No, but it sounds similar enough to see. It's hard to say now because so much of it is like the visuals, the vibe, the sound design, yada yada yada. So it's kind of hard to say what it sounds like. What it sounds like, it's easy to compare to, but until I actually see it, it's hard to say what it's comparable to.
Yeah, it's a very hard game to describe the experience because it's not based around mechanics so much. So if we're talking about like a shooter, we talk about, oh, it's got this great like grappling system, or you know, these really interesting guns. Whereas this, it's more like it's very humorous, and it has great subtext and stuff like that. It's not exactly. Hopefully during this I'll be throwing up some images of some great shots and some like great scenes during that, and you can see the aesthetic that's very unique to this. Like a lot of games, you know, it's a Mario clone, it's a Zelda clone, it's rooted in a nostalgic thing, and that can be a criticism of a lot of indie games. I think is that they're sort of banking on that nostalgia buzz for people to come into their world, or even like basing their art style on it. But with this, it's very unique and very striking as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I was playing Shovel Knight before before you came in, so
that's nostalgia. The game,
yeah,
basically.
that is, uber nostalgia. Okay, well, that sounds like fairly cool. Now, like, is there any major flaws in the game though? Like, is there anything that you're like, I didn't like that, or
no? If
nothing at all.
Well, not that it's a perfect game, but if you go into it with an open mind and you're up for the experience that it offers, you will love it. Like, it doesn't try to be anything it isn't. It's not like it tries to, oh, this is like a...
There isn't a twin stick shooter bit in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that,
it's not throwing that shit at you. Like, even calling it a point and click game is a bit missing the mark a little bit, because I'm not sure there's actually any puzzles at all in it. Like, you might have to pick up an item and bring it to another place, but it's
one of the,
not about that. It might as well be a visual novel, to be honest.
Okay.
But it's a fantastic experience altogether.
Although, I mean, a visual novel, like, I mean, I'm all for those sort of games. Like, I mean, we have very similar tastes when it comes to that sort of thing. Like, I mean, we love those kind of games that like really push the medium in interesting ways. But I think there is an argument to be made that like there's a lot of games that just don't have gameplay. You know, like the walking simulators. It's like, what's the one that I played that it's I enjoyed it, but I can 100% get the argument that it's not really a game. It's Dear Esther.
Dear Esther.
Like that game is like, it's the walking simulator. It's like, I think it was the first major. It's
sort
one.
of like the most pure distillation. Like it adds literally nothing else. Like,
yeah,
you have some voiceover.
There's voiceover, and I think there's things you can find on the island if you look for them, but you're under no obligation to find them. So it is literally a case of walking from point A to B for the entirety of the game. So
well, I guess it comes down to, what do we define as a game? Like, does it have to be something that you get a high score in, or that there's even a win state in? But like, these games are interactive, like Kentucky Route Zero and Dear Esther. Like, I know you could watch a film of it, but it's not quite the same.
You do have choices in the gameplay, I suppose, or in the dialogue options. So I suppose that's like, I mean, in and itself, like, you could say that is a gameplay mechanic. I mean, it's part of Mass Effect. Like, it's a huge part of. If you look at Mass Effect, right, like, so much of that is the dialogue. I mean, who goes in to play Mass Effect for the shooting part? Nobody.
God help you if you do. Anyway.
You know, everybody I think plays Mass Effect for the world and the relationships you have with other people.
No, I play Mass Effect for the resource gathering.
Really?
That's my favorite part. I love that shit.
Listen, I didn't want to be too obvious for that, you know, like, you know, scanning planets. I could do that shit all day.
Yeah, it's the most exciting. I'm going to put up a YouTube video of the highlights of scanning planets.
I've heard, like, for Mass Effect 5, they're just going to, like, scrap out the story, and you're just going to, like, have pictures of planets. Like, not even, like, on screen. They're just sending you a poster. And you just, like, scan it with your phone. And then it's like, yeah, man, it's win.
Augmented reality experience. Yeah.
Well, part of me kind of thinks that'd be okay, but yeah. Okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And you said the fifth episode is coming out this year.
Yeah, the fifth act, I should say. So
I will say you didn't really need to convince me of this, because you have mentioned this before, I was sold.
I think I've made you want to play it less, if anything.
No, definitely not. Like, I see a big part of it for me, and this is 100% a flaw in my character now, is just the fact that I don't like really playing any PC games anymore. Like, if it's not on a console, I almost want nothing to do with it. But I know that it's coming out for the Switch soon.
I think it's coming to PS4 and Xbox One as well this year, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll probably be picking it up.
Well, now's a great time to pick it up, and
suppose like when you know that like the last episode's finally coming. Like, did you play it when it came out in 2013?
I think the first two were out by the time I played it. Those two did come out in 2013. Yeah.
And did that not drive you insane? Like, is it a cliffhanger every single episode?
Not quite. Like you're not. You know you're not finished with the game, but
they're relatively.
They're
contained.
sort of self-contained. Like the first one does end on sort of a note of intrigue, I will say, but it's not quite, Halo 2-esque
it's not
bullshit.
like, oh my god, this is a flash forward, we need to go back to the island and Lost sort of thing. It's more like next week Buffy will be fighting this monster.
Maybe. Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Okay, well, that's my game. What have you got for me, Stephen?
Okay, so I'm taking almost the complete opposite route from you in terms of my game. So mine isn't original at all. It's very much a copycat game, but it is a great copycat game. Let me ask you, do you like the game Doom?
Which one?
The original Doom.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
it's class.
Doom is a badass game, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yes. Well, as you probably know, there are, I think the exact quantity is known as a fuck ton of Doom clones.
Yeah.
And I'm basically going to talk to you about my favorite Doom clone, which is a little game called Blood.
Blood. Okay.
Blood.
I think I've heard of this. Okay.
Blood is actually first. Now, do you know the main reason that I put this up here is because I was looking back at our other videos and I realized every game that I have is really kiddie, fantasy, fighting dragons. So,
Yeah.
and nearly every game you had was we have guns and we're blowing shit up. So this is kind of my
We
response
both flipped
to
it
that.
on this,
Yeah, we
yeah.
kind of flipped this one. Now it's still got like demons and shit, but you do have a Tommy gun in it, so like that's kind of a big deal.
Well, it's called Blood, so
yeah. So like it is the thing is, right, it is a Doom clone. There's no way of getting around that. It's
when did it come out? Is it like
it came out in 97.
Okay, so it's really like a Doom clone.
Oh yeah, like it looks like Doom, like it's got the same graphical style and all that, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that, but it kind of evolves it in small ways. Like I can't honestly say that there's anything revolutionary in there. There's
Yeah.
nothing that's going to make you go, holy shit, this is advanced first person shooters 1000%. It doesn't do that. It's very much a Doom clone. But I really like the advances it does make. I really, really enjoy them. Particularly what I really like is the world building. The one flaw that I would say of Doom is, like, I mean, it is tons of fun. Gameplay is absolutely phenomenal.
But you're not there to learn, why did this demon become a demon?
You don't, you don't give a shit about like the story of the place, and it's every single level in Doom. Like, although it might be well designed, it is when you get right down to it, they're just mazes with monsters in them. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing really cool in them. Doom actually has a world. Like, it legitimately has a
Blood,
world.
you mean?
Oh yeah, did I say Doom?
Yeah, you said Doom,
okay.
yeah.
But Blood actually has a world. Like, it makes sense, the worlds that you're in, because it feels like it could actually be a living place, and
Okay.
it still has like the pace and like the adrenaline of Doom, which is really cool. It was developed by Monolith Productions. Can you think of anything that they've made?
I recognize the name.
The one that you're probably thinking of is they have recently been doing Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so the Nemesis system.
Yeah, but
that's
it's
cool.
weird because like they've got kind of a wide spectrum of skills. Like before that, they did Condemned, the
Okay.
first one, not the second one. They also did Fear 1 and 2, which was a really good
So
game.
they're like first-person shooter guys.
Yeah, and before that they did Tron 2, which I've never played, but I've heard it's supposed to be really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Anyway, so to set the scene for you, right? Here's the basic story of the game. You play as Caleb, an undead 19th century Wild West gunslinger, seeking revenge on his old master, the Chernobog, who I think is a very loosely recorded black god from like Slavic tradition. Like I was trying to look him up, seeing is he an actual thing, and like there's kind of like sort of mentions of him, but like he's meh. But
Okay.
anyway, whatever. So he used to be Caleb used to be like a cult leader of the Cabal, a group of followers to Chernobog. He became the lover of a woman named Ophelia, which is like the biggest signposting that this girl is going to die you possibly can do. As soon as you name someone Ophelia, you might as well accept she's going to die before she's 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but anyway, obviously Chernobog kills him, kills her lover, kills basically everybody because fuck it, he's a dark god. That's what he does.
That's what they do.
And Kayla basically comes back to life in the early 20th century. I think it's kind of loosely, like, it's supposed to be around World War One, but there's kind of elements of the 40s, 50s, and even the 60s in there as well.
Yeah.
And he's basically just coming back, killing all his minions and blowing them up. So obviously a team of writers were hired for
Written by William Shakespeare.
Exactly. It's now, like, at the time, a really big deal was it was really violent. Like, even when I was looking at it recently, I was looking through a few gameplay videos, and it was, for the time, like, obviously when you're looking at it now, considering some of the
It's
stuff,
laughable, yeah.
it's when you've seen some of the stuff that we've seen now, you're like, whatever. But even looking at it, like, and taking the time period into account, you can see it actually is properly violent. Sound design was a really big part of that, because one of the weapons that you have in it, and I've never seen this in any other game, is you get a flare gun, right? So you can shoot somebody with a flare, and, like, it doesn't seem to have an effect for about 5 seconds, but then they burst into a flame when, like, it explodes. And the screams that come out of people, like, they are harrowing. I was listening to it. It's really, really blood-curdling screams. Like, it sounds terrifying. But you can also, like, literally make people explode into a shower of blood and guts. You can shoot people's heads off and then kick the heads around. Let's see, what else is there to do? Like,
it's weird that like the mid to late 90s had, like, a fascination with gore. Like, you had Mortal Kombat and Carmageddon, or like Twisted Metal, like all these games coming out that's just like, basically our whole hook is you can have more blood than the other game, you know?
There's two things, like, now I know I told you that this is very much a Doom clone, and it doesn't advance it hugely, but it does advance first person shooters in a slight way.
Okay.
Two things that I say, I've looked everywhere now. I can't confirm this 100% definite because the internet is a huge place, and I can't see.
And there's so much porn there.
So you know, I started looking this up last week, and I've only come out of my room now. But the first thing, I don't know if this is definite, but I can't find any other games earlier than this that had it. I think this is the first game that had alternative fire modes for weapons.
Did Quake have that? Well, I can't remember when
No,
Quake
it
came out.
didn't. I was looking it up. Quake didn't have that. I think Quake 2 might have, but that came out afterwards. This is the first one I can find that actually had alternative, like, firing modes, which I'm like, that's kind of cool.
That's cool. Yeah,
That's
you see
cool.
that in lots of games. Yeah.
The second thing that I saw, it had levels revolving around moving vehicles. So one of my favorite levels in the entire game is where you get on a train, and it's speeding towards a destination, and if you fall off the train, like, you just die. And, like,
cool.
There's bits where you climb up on top of the train, you're fighting around the train, in the train. It's really, really cool.
Awesome. Okay.
So I like it. Now, obviously, I like it a lot because it's kind of like Doom, but it's like horror themed, you know? There are a ton of horror references in it, and you know me, you know how much I love horror. There's, like,
are we talking like Nightmare on Elm Street sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's I'm trying to remember, like, there's, like, a load of haunted house levels in it. Like, there's one of the levels is the Overlooked Hotel, and
that's good.
There's a maze in it, and if you go through it, you find this guy who's completely frozen.
Okay.
And you have this, like, little button, like, it's an action button, and, like, your main character Caleb, he has a great sense of humor. It's really dry black humor.
Yeah.
And he's constantly making comments if you press this action button at certain points, and if you press it at that point, he's like, he's Johnny. Like, when you do that.
For anyone who doesn't know, that's a reference to The Shining.
Don't be looking at between 5 and 6 because that's Willie's hour. Yeah, so, like, it's got a weird gothic western vibe, and it's like I said, all the levels seem connected. Like, you know how Doom was kind of a case of you get to the end of the level and then you pull a switch and then you went to the map. It's okay, now you're going here, and you're just kind of transported there.
Yeah.
In this one, you can see the link. Like, the train level I was telling you about, that level ends by you crashing the train, and the start of the next level starts in the train station where it's completely on fire. The train is crashed behind you, and, like, you're going a little further in. That was kind of new at the time, because, like, there's been other Doom clones, like Hexen and all that kind of thing, and again, they did the same thing where it was just a case of you kind of get transported between levels, but this seemed to have a connected world.
So it had, like, a story to some extent that it followed, and everything made sense in a way. Yeah.
It wasn't by any means an amazing story. It was like, it had that, which I find, like, quite very quaint, that, like, story that you don't give two shits about, but it's there to serve the gameplay, and that's fine. But it was the world, the fact that the world itself works in the it works in the game. Like you feel very much a part of it, and not just a case of, okay, I need to get from the start of the level to the end of the level. Simple as. It's like, no, you're actually going from the start of the game to the end of the game. Like, you know, it all felt connected, which was a big deal.
Linear progression. Yeah, that's good.
I'm trying to think, like, I always bring it back to, you know, how cool it was that they had lots of they had so many haunted house references. Like they had a level called the Mall of the Dead. Okay. So obviously, you know, like lots of zombies there.
Man, they must have been up all hour working on these puns.
It was, yeah, like it's not really like, you know, it's not strenuous on their part by any means, but it's fun. You know? There's a hospital level as well where there's you haven't seen the movie It's Alive by any chance, have you? No, it's basically about a demonic baby. But you see, go into at one point you go into like the maternity ward, and just like just this little pram, and there's like a hand leaning out of it, which is dark as hell because it's like a baby hand and it's just there hanging out at the end of it. Okay. Like that's dark when you think of the time that this came out of. Like that is
man, I'd kill a baby.
Yeah, well,
in a game. In a game.
Don't quote that out of context. But you know, like I think this is kind of emblematic at the time because, you know, if that sort of thing happened in Call of Duty, like, you know, that airport level,
no Russian,
yeah, exactly, like, you know, everyone pounced on that and that was huge.
It was
like,
a big deal. Yeah,
if you had a dead baby in a modern game, that would be like, holy shit. But nobody paid attention to it because this is 97 when people didn't give two shits about video games.
Yeah, or there's so many violent video games.
Yeah, or once. Well, one or two, you know, either one. What else was there? Like there was I can't remember. I remember there is a point where you can see Freddy Krueger's severed head as well. Like I think it's in hell, like towards the very, very end.
They didn't get copyright for all this shit.
No, they didn't give a shit.
Back when no one cared about that.
I also really like the weapons in it as well because, you know, there's so many games in it that you just, or so many first person shooters and Doom clones where it's a case of you got machine gun, you've got your shotgun, yada yada yada. But this one seems, you know, very like they were throwing a lot of variety into it. Like I told you about the flare gun, obviously.
Yeah.
Your first weapon, instead of like fists, you get pitchforks, so you can like stab people to death, which is nice. You can get a deodorant can with a lighter to, like, you know, so it's a flamethrower essentially.
Do this thing at home, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Dynamite, obviously, as well. Tommy gun, napalm launchers. The top weapon you can get is a voodoo doll.
Okay, so, like, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. So you can, like, you know, break people's arms, and like the visuals behind that are like, you know, you see like a zombie ahead of you, and you just like twist the neck, and then like the head just falls off. It was really cool. Like, you know, it's a weird way to play a first person shooter. Like, I'm not certain if you had to aim because I don't think I ever got that far. Like
for the aiming part.
No. Like I never got to like the
voodoo doll.
The voodoo doll is like you get towards the end of the game, and I never got that far. But I had it when I was like 7, you know, the perfect time to play this extremely violent game.
I'm guessing it played like a Doom, like it was floaty, sort of fast,
extremely fast paced. Yeah, like you go in, like there was no hiding behind walls or anything like that. You go in, and it's the kind of thing where, you know, you've seen this in a lot of games where like the place is completely empty. You're like, huh, and you go in and you say, get him, and then you'd see like a swarm of enemies coming after you, and you're just kind of like running as fast as you can, blowing people up, throwing dynamite at people, like stabbing with pitchforks, Tommy guns,
constantly moving. That's what you want.
Yeah, the Tommy gun actually was a weapon I really like because the alternative like the original firing of that is obviously point and shoot, but the alternative fighter is like you can just hear like it's almost like gangster laughing, and you just kind of weave from side to side with like the Tommy gun. It's like it's the Suggins gang.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the game that I'm telling you should play, but like it's, like I said, it is a Doom clone, but sometimes, you can point at one game that, you know, revolutionized a certain genre, but sometimes you do get better games in that genre, and
or at least alternative sort of tastes.
Yeah. And like, I'm not saying that this is better than Doom. Like, Doom had a lot of levels in it packed in. It's just like, I personally preferred this sort of game. There's like, look, there's one thing that I didn't like about it, and this is only because I was looking this up recently. The main guy, Caleb, who's a great sense of humor, and I loved him. There's a great point where you're on the train and you look in the reflection in the mirror, and you see a picture of yourself, and you press the action button. And he goes, "Oh, it's just me." Okay, so like, you know, it's that kind of sense of humor. But I looked this up recently. I looking up who did the voice of him, and there's some guy called Stephen Waite, and the only other memorable credit that he has is the Colonel in Metroid Other M, which is like the worst character in video game history.
I don't think we should hold that against Blood, really.
No, I'm not holding that against Blood. I mean, you know the whole deal with that, the Colonel, right? You know, like...
yeah, no, it's... And Other M in general was like a train wreck.
Yeah, it basically turned Samus into like a simpering little pansy, and like she had this weird complex with the Colonel who she was like in love with, but... yeah, I mean, that's the game. It had a sequel as well called The Chosen, which was set in the future, but to be honest, it looked kind of shit. So I never actually played it. Because, you know, weirdly enough, like 90s games set in the future, just generally speaking, I don't think we're that good. So, I mean, I don't think that's like something you can cover everything with, but...
yeah, I could probably throw a few games on screen that would go against that. But
I'm sure, but we'll... Listen, but yeah, that's my one. I mean, if you like if you like Doom, which I know for a fact that you...
Actual Blood,
you know? Actual Blood. But if you like, you know, if you like Doom and you want more of that sort of thing, I cannot recommend Blood enough. It is a huge amount of fun, really adrenaline pumping, and like it's got a really cohesive world that feels great, and it's funny. It's genuinely funny. It will make you laugh several times throughout it because like the references in there, they're really organically peppered in, but in a way that you're like, you're just taking the piss, but I love it.
Sort of reminds me of Duke Nukem in a way. Like that's
Duke
Nukem started as a Doom clone as well.
Yeah, so, and I actually it's built on the exact same engine actually as Duke Nukem.
Oh, okay.
Like, so but there was a couple. I mean, a lot of people do say that Duke Nukem was the one that progressed it the most, but I was looking this up, and a few people are like, no, they kind of think Blood was the better one.
There's dozens of us.
Yeah, I mean, I played Duke Nukem before, like the one that came out on the PlayStation Store, and I can't deny that it's not good. It's just it's one of those ones that didn't quite grab. It would have been better if I was growing up with it, you know.
If you're into that humor, it's good, but like it wears thin.
Yeah, I prefer Blood just because it has that black humor, and I just like I like that much better.
So what would you say is your favorite moment from Blood?
My favorite moment from Blood easily is there's one particular level. It's the Carnival of the Damned, and it is absolute. It's so much fun, and it's perfectly emblematic of like the humor and style of gameplay in it because there's all these carnival attractions and every one of them almost has kind of a mini game in it. There's shooting galleries.
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah, no, it's cool. There's like a shooting gallery with a bunch of bottles, and like if you you don't really think like, oh, you have to go there, but if you shoot all the bottles, you get a power up.
All right,
you
cool.
know, there's one of my favorite ones is there's this weird do you know those like soccer games where you have to like kick a ball into a goal and you win a prize or something?
Yeah.
It's something like that, but it's like a giant bloody mouth that's opening and closing, and you have to kick zombie heads into it, and that's really hard to do. But if you
this sounds gross.
It is gross. It's pretty gross. They also have like a freak show. What was it? Oh, I can't remember. It had a really non-PC name, but I can't remember what it is. Or maybe I can, and I'm just choosing not to say it. Or they had loads. Oh, what else was it? There was also like a test your strength punchometer. So if you shot it with a napalm launcher, it went right through the roof, and you got like the best
class.
thing
That's
there
cool.
was. There was also actually in the freak show, one thing you'll like this. You know the movie Freaks?
Yeah.
You know, do you know the there's that chant that goes through it like Google Gobble, one of us, one of us. That's playing the whole way through the freak show.
Okay.
Which is so, you know, it's like, you know, it's not just kind of casual, like they actually go in depth into old classic horror movies.
I love that.
And the last and there's loads of mimes around the carnival as well who don't hurt you, but you can kill them anyway.
Well, you've sold me on it now.
And just the very last thing, they also have a carousel that is full of, like, it's all gargoyles instead of horses, and you think nothing of it until they all come to life and basically murder you.
They have a what?
Carousel?
Or a carousel?
Carousel? Steve Carousel?
Guitaroo man. This is a repeat.
I love games. The plastician. But yeah, that would probably be my favorite moment of Blood. So tell me, what would be your favorite moment of Kentucky Route Zero while we're here?
I think it's about as far from a freak carnival shoot 'em up as you can get. Okay, so my favorite moment. This is the only thing I'm going to spoil in the game at all. But it happens in Act 2. So in Act 2, you pick up a lady and a man on your travels, and they become I knew you'd say that. My 12-year-old here. Lady and a man, and you bring them on your way, and they're a music group. They're touring or whatever, but you drive along with them, and you get in conversations, and it's great. And eventually, you get to this rundown bar flickering neon sign in the corner, nobody in there, like a grizzled old guy. There's a stage there, so eventually they go up and they get on stage, and then the music starts and everything goes dim, and the roof literally lifts off the venue, and you can see the stars in the sky, and her clothes change from like a jeans and whatever to like this really beautiful blue dress, and the song kicks in, and in that starry sky above the bar you begin to see lyrics that you choose for the song.
What?
As it's going on. So you choose at the beginning of each verse, you choose what the song is going to be about.
Okay.
And it's just it's I think it's one of my favorite moments from any game ever. Honest to God, like this is really hit me when it happened. Because it comes from nowhere. Like there's nothing like this throughout the rest of it. Even after this, they don't really repeat this trick again. Like in any capacity. Like obviously you choose dialogue throughout, but like during a song, and like the game doesn't change. This is the point I wanted to make about the whole game in general. The game doesn't change as a result of what you choose. It's just what you're feeling at that time. It's what you want this song to mean to everyone on this journey at the time. And it's actually a really beautiful song, has a really nice vocal in it. And it's just sort of a really surprising moment. And it does things like the roof lifting off that's a very obvious sort of symbolism there for how you feel during one of these life affirming gigs we've all been to, where you feel like you're not you're out of body experience almost, and it's sort of, I don't know, I've never seen, when I talk about great moments in these games, they're generally like a great level, but it's very rare that you have this sort of moment that you can distill the appeal of a game down to just this one thing. And look it up on YouTube if you want, anyone listening to this, or even better, play the game. I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you, but it's a really amazing moment in this.
As if you guys could see, like there's a single tear has just rolled down Michael's eye. It's,
I can't help it.
Well, listen, the time has come that we need to actually decide which game should be the one to get the other to play. The one thing I will say before we decide something is, we are very much going off like each other's explanation of a game. See, now I've heard a lot about Kentucky Route Zero, right? And I've heard great things, but I'm trying to go off what you've told me. Now,
well, it's less what we want to play, is more like what we'd recommend.
Would we recommend it? Like, I mean, because like I'm going to play Kentucky Route Zero, but I have no idea if you'll ever play Blood.
This one's difficult because they're such different games as well.
Yeah. It's I suppose, like, I mean, what do we want, like, our listeners? Like, I mean, it does kind of depend on, like, the kind of experience you want to have. I mean, it's very easy to say, like, are you wanting like a fun action game or a contemplative experience? And like, you can't really recommend one or the other because it all depends on the person. And
because like Kentucky Route Zero is such a unique thing, but whereas Blood, you can say, hey, if you like Doom, play more of this. And it's sort of like a different twist on it as well. So if you're a fan of Doom, you're definitely going to enjoy this as well. Whereas there's not too many games I can point to. Like, if you like Monkey Island, you're not exactly going to like Kentucky Route Zero either.
So I don't know, like, I mean,
I'd give it to Blood, to be honest.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd give it to Blood, because to be honest, like, I'd only vaguely heard of it before you mentioned it today, and it has intrigued me. I'm thinking, like, even if I don't enjoy every element of it, it's got maybe a kitsch appeal that
definitely 100%
funny or
like,
something.
I mean, the thing is, like, Kentucky Route Zero, it's something I've heard a lot about, and like I've heard loads of people recommending it. But the one thing I will say, like, I know you've obviously told me that, like, it's amazing and you love it and you think I should play it, but I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, is the thing, Like, I don't feel like, do you know the way there's some games you're like,
you could say that about any game though, really.
That's true, but like, this is one of those ones where I'm kind of like divided on, like, I know I'm going to get it, I know I'm going to give it a try, and I feel it in my gut that I'm probably going to like it, but there's no guarantee of that, and there's part of me that's thinking, maybe this just won't be my kind of game. I think there was one that I tried what was the game? I picked up a game and I was certain I was going to like. Oh, do you know what it was? It was, No More Heroes on the Wii.
Oh yeah, that's
I picked that up and I was like, I know I'm going to enjoy this. Like Suda51 and like it's action.
It's a very much a love it or hate it sort of game.
And I played that and I hated it. And like I was annoyed because I bought that and the sequel at the same time. And it's like I didn't even like. I think I played the sequel briefly, but it was pretty much the same again. So.
Okay, so we need to wrap this baby up.
Okay, so
let's say Blood.
Do you think Blood?
I think Blood, but anyone who's listened to this, you know, there's two very unique experiences there.
We're always going to recommend both.
Exactly, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
whole point of this. But if we have to choose one, maybe Blood.
Okay, like I feel, yeah, no, I
You're
mean,
on the fence about it, but
I am on the fence because like I am always like new experience is great, but like that one's kind of a hard one to recommend. Whereas I think Blood is just, if you love Doom, you're going to love this, and it's different enough that it'll be a different experience.
I sort of feel like more people, like if you took 100 people, more people enjoy Blood. I think Kentucky Route Zero is a sort of acquired taste to a certain extent. Not to say that any, like, if you don't get it, you won't enjoy it. It's not that sort of game, but it's just, I can definitely see some people being annoyed by the lack of gameplay.
Okay. So listen, we'll say this, that like, you know, if you're looking for like a really weird, surreal experience and like possibly like, according to Michael, like the most amazing gameplay experience of
Yeah.
your life, Kentucky Route Zero. But will we go for?
We'll go for Blood.
Go for Blood.
If for nothing else than shooting a flare into some guy's mouth and seeing him scream and die.
That's always fun. I mean, like that's the one thing I felt Animal Crossing needed.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.
Okay, talk to you later.